I stood up from the table and looked at Chaz, and my mind seemed to snap out of the fog. Damn, he was good looking. Damn. But, I thought, why the fuck do I want to do this? With that thought, I followed my girlfriends and boyfriends to the door. Then, I stopped. I didn't realize I was on the verge of divorce. No matter what I did, I was close to divorce. But the choice was whether my marriage would end in war or amicably. I reflected on my life and my marriage. Was I happy? Hell, my husband Zach was a good husband, except for some important nuances. He didn't hit me and he wasn't a drunk. He was reliable at work, and his employer provided health insurance that was quite favorable for me and our daughter. As for his free time, Zach's free time was largely just for Zach. He ignored me and our daughter. As a wonderful bonus, he has added almost 30 pounds since we got married, while I only weighed a pound or two more than I did at our wedding. And let me tell you, it's been a huge undertaking. That's pretty decent for a 36-year-old woman who gave birth to a daughter. From April through October, Zach came home every night and turned on 2 televisions with baseball games, and then hooked up 3 more broadcasts on his 3-screen gaming computer monitors. Last week, I made his favorite meal, chicken carbonara, which he took from the kitchen table and then went to his home office to chow down to a baseball game while my daughter and I ate at the dining room table in the kitchen. Our 12-year-old daughter, Emily, just looked at me and rolled her eyes. If he wasn't watching 5 baseball games at a time, he was playing Counter-Strike, yelling into the microphone on his computer. "Kill the bastard! Left, 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 left! Shit!" And he wonders where our daughter picked up swear words. His speech wasn't any better when he was yelling at baseball players who certainly couldn't hear his rants. The NFL season wasn't much better. He could give me some time after the Super Bowl before spring training, but that's where it ended. Sex was a 2-minute warm-up and sleep. I know you've read about all husbands being saints. Mine certainly wasn't. I would be a saint if I pretended to enjoy his quick sex. I'm no saint. He didn't make the slightest effort, and I became his mirror image. I was bored, and yes, he really didn't listen to me when I told him about his activities, which annoyed me. After I bluntly told him 100 times that watching sports and playing on the computer didn't help make his wife happy, I gave up. Sue me. I tried 100 times, and no, I'm not implying that he should read my mind. I've told him exactly what I want from him. He just ignored me. Back to the present. I froze, then stopped, and Brittany asked me, "What's wrong? Let's go. The guys are waiting." I shook my head. "I can't." Brittany looked at me in surprise. "Of course you can." Brittany turned to Madison and said, "Ask the guys to wait. I'll talk to her." Madison left and Brittany tried to talk me into it. I was adamant. My stupid wedding vows. Damn it! Those were the ones I meant, even though Zach was no longer making any effort to do so. 5 minutes later, Brittany shook her head, sighed, and said, "Your loss. Chaz is a miracle and you're missing him." I sighed. Chaz really was a stud. Yes, sex with Chaz would be 1,000,000,000 times better than with my fat bum husband, but for some reason I wouldn't let Chaz touch me, even though I was out of Zach's sight in the clubhouse while my husband watched baseball. Denying everyone else. I was doing what I could, and he wasn't helping me with anything. Why the hell did I care about my vows? I sighed. Damn, go on without me. Brittany frowned, then finally gave up and left. Half an hour later, when I got home at 10, Zach was sitting in front of the TV watching baseball as usual. I rolled my eyes in feigned shock at the fact that he was sitting on his ass and staring at the screen. Zach was surprised to see me and asked, "What are you doing home?" His voice sounded almost accusatory. I sighed and replied, "I live here. I went to the kitchen, made some chamomile tea, and went to bed a half hour later. Saturday. The next day, feces got caught on the rotating air circulation device. I woke up to my phone on my bedside table beeping text messages more or less continuously. I picked up my phone and focused on the screen after about the 8th beep. Wait. Not the 8th, but the 48th message. Wow, I slept like a killjoy last night. A few interesting points. Asterisk, where's Will? Asterisk Will came home at 3 o'clock. He was angry and wouldn't talk to me. Asterisk. Asterisk. Matt handed me divorce papers he'd printed off the website. Asterisk. He had a private investigator. He accused me of cheating on him. Asterisk Laura, was Zach home when you got home? Asterisk. Laura, was Zach home? Asterisk Laura, did Zach say anything to you last night? Asterisk Laura, answer me. Yes, I'm Laura, and I missed quite a bit of drama last night. I texted them back to say that Zach was surprised that I got home early and nothing else interesting happened. Needless to say, things were not going well for Brittany and Madison. I tried to sympathize with them in some way, but if I could keep from screwing Chaz, why couldn't they? Perhaps it was due to some resentment. I was married to a man who didn't put any effort into our marriage, while Will was on the run and Matt was on the sport as well. Their husbands paid more attention to them in a week than I did in a year. If I could keep my legs closed, why couldn't they? The private investigator story was perplexing, but then it occurred to me that maybe I was under surveillance too. Shit. That's why Zach seemed surprised by my early return home. He expected me to cheat on him. Last night had been a trap, and I hadn't fallen into it. I looked at Zach, who was watching me with interest as I read. He asked with feigned innocence, "Anything interesting?" I rolled my eyes. "So that's why you were so sarcastic last night?" He nodded. "I was sure you had decided to have some fun." I looked at him reproachfully. "I never cheated on you." He frowned and muttered, "Maybe, but you were definitely flirting with that guy." I nodded. "And I didn't let him do anything I couldn't do in your presence." He nodded. "Well, yeah, I got the report." I looked at him sourly. He'd probably forgotten that when his obnoxious, slippery asshole boss sent Zach to get some paperwork, he'd explicitly offered me sex at his company's Christmas party. Unlike the asshole, Chaz conducted a pretty convincing and smooth seduction. Yes, I showed Zach the pictures after I got them. The hardest part was telling off his boss, and doing it in a way that didn't get Zach fired. The expressions little weenie and creepy asshole were swirling around in my head at the time, but I didn't voice them so Zach could keep his job. Now I let another one of his barbs slip past my ears. No need to turn up the volume on this fun morning conversation. He was quiet for a moment, then looked at me with a fair amount of smugness. "Your slutty girlfriends deserve a divorce for their little antics? 25-year-old fitness product salesman from Cincinnati." "Really?" I shrugged. I hadn't done anything wrong. He wrinkled his nose, hesitated a moment, then said, "Yes, I know, but your friends sure did. But you've been thinking about it." I nodded cautiously. "Yes. And you—" I thought of the girl with the big breasts at the front desk that he was always flirting with. Yeah, I'd heard about that. It was also hard not to notice the way she would roll her eyes when I came to work with him. I stopped and said, "I could list a lot of things, too. Let's just forget about it." He looked at me and gave me a little nudge. "You were going to go with him?" I nodded. "Yeah, but for some stupid reason I just couldn't follow through with it. In fact, I was going over in my head my wedding vows to you. I wouldn't even let that guy touch me in a way that you could object to. At your company Christmas party, when you went to get your paperwork, your asshole boss tried to grab my breasts, but I pushed him away. I wanted to punch him in his smug face and pour wine on his face. Don't thank me, by the way. Or I could have slapped him and then kicked him in the balls with my knee, but I figured you'd rather stay on the job." He knew I was right, but he was pissed. He sighed noisily and admitted it. "Oh, well, you didn't cheat in the end. I figured it had been forever since I'd last had ecstasy, and I was damn sure Chaz could have given it to me more than once. Good thing I didn't say that out loud." There was a tense silence. Then he grinned slightly, then fake muttered falsely, "Thank you. It kind of makes life easier. I don't know." He turned down the volume. I did the same and asked, "What do we do next?" He thought for a second and said, "It just doesn't work anymore." I nodded. He continued, "I could list a lot of things. I guess you could make your own list." He stood up, rubbed his temples, and said, "I just need to get away for a few hours. I won't do anything stupid." I nodded again, and he took his keys and left. 2 hours later, he came back and said, "I was in a sports bar watching the game and thinking, truce?" I replied, "Truce!" He pulled out his phone and showed me a page of divorce laws in our state. It struck me. We were going to get divorced. I was actually okay with it. I sighed and said, "It's probably for the best, isn't it?" He nodded, grinned slightly, and replied, I had it all planned out. After you would cheat on me, I was going to publicly blow you up. I was going to tell everyone and send you divorce papers to work. I was going to send pictures to your parents. I was going to, Brittany's husband had a private investigator, and he's been watching her and you the whole time. You ruined my big plans. Brittany, by the way, has been cheating with a coworker for at least a month. Yesterday's guys were a whole different bunch. I was stunned. What? He looked at me as if reading my mind and was surprised. Damn, you didn't know? That's amazing. You really didn't know. I shook my head. She and I aren't that close. Brittany is closer to Madison. He laughed. All my grand plans to burn you down went down the drain, and you never knew about Brittany. I shrugged and replied with a fair amount of sarcasm. I'm sorry I didn't forget my vows. He laughed again. Actually, thank you for remembering them. Honestly, I don't even want to try to save this shitty marriage. I could list a dozen things and you'd answer me with an equal dozen, if not more. Do you want to just give up fighting and finalize the divorce with the least amount of fuss? I nodded. I agree. There's nothing you can do to make me want to stay married to you. He showed me his tongue and said, Bitch! I showed him my middle finger and replied, Dickhead! We laughed. Honestly, it was the first time in forever that I'd really smiled at him. The tension was gone. The obvious dislike of his very presence vanished. My blood pressure dropped, and for the first time in forever, I was at peace with myself. He looked at me and snorted. Bitch, you want dinner? I snapped back. Are you paying, asshole? He laughed. Yes, the asshole is paying. That night, our daughter was out with her friends until 7 p.m., and there was no way Zach would miss the baseball game. It was early enough to have dinner and be back in time. We went to a fancy pizza place. Cavaretti's is a $25 pizza and worth every penny. We sat quietly and figured out how to end our marriage. Ironically, the truce became an official peace treaty, literally written on a paper napkin. We swapped our ridiculous house for 2 3-bedroom apartments at different ends of the same apartment complex, and it's working. Our daughter sees both of us almost every day, and it just, works. When the tension subsided, we both took her out for a celebratory dinner. I dare say we have a friendly relationship. During our negotiations, I got him to agree to spend more time with our daughter. 6 months later, we were officially divorced. We had a lawyer in common who did little except file paperwork and show up in court. We agreed on the division of our assets. Heck, the biggest fight was over the music collection, and he ended up handing me a $250 iTunes gift card to listen to music on my phone, which was fine with me since I hang out on my phone more than he does. He liked CDs, and he has a big, powerful gaming computer. Sigh, another thing he spent time ignoring me on. The judge looked at us, and I swear he almost smiled. We were parents trying to make the divorce and property division as reasonable as possible for our daughter. He loved that we had sold the house and already had our own apartments that were less than 300 feet apart. Our daughter could easily walk to either of our homes. He carefully worked out Emily's custody issues, but the money didn't make it into the division. In fact, I make a little more than he does, but why would we fight over an amount less than $100 a month? The funny thing is, my girlfriend's divorces were a year of fighting and hell, whereas mine was just, boring. Brittany had it the worst. She was served divorce papers at work, accompanied by the song Hound Dog in front of her coworkers. There's a chorus. You're just a hound dog. The judge was not amused. Pro tip, don't piss off the judges. He narrowly avoided a real punishment, and the judge told him to knock it all off. Okay, the hound dog story was pretty funny. Brittany's ex managed to dodge that bullet, and she didn't lose her job. Revenge is a dish best served cold until you have to pay real money to enjoy it. Divorce is chess, not checkers. He posted pictures on her Facebook of her going into a guy's apartment to cheat. He sent an investigative report along with the pictures to her parents. She got what she deserved. She fought back. He fought back. Not nice, not nice, not nice. Meanwhile, during the divorce, I had lunch with Zach a few times to discuss some issues regarding our daughter, and I won't be afraid to say it. I loved it. Madison's parents found out about the affair from her husband, and he told a few of his friends, but left her work alone. Pro tip, don't interfere with your soon-to-be ex's work, as it could affect child or spousal support calculations. Her husband played out the divorce with strategy and left more or less normally. We set up a visitation schedule for our daughter. He almost always has Monday and Friday off, and I have Saturday and Sunday off. But given his schedule as store manager at Higgins Home Emporium, it works since those are his 2 heaviest work days. I take care of our daughter more during his big retail season from Black Friday through Christmas Eve, and he gets her more during tax season since I work as an accountant. We split the other days and agreed to split in half any extra expenses for our daughter, and it's worked. We both sleep better because of the stresses in our lives. I don't have to let the fat guy lay on top of me, rock for 2 minutes, and go to bed. And he doesn't have a dead fish that doesn't want to participate in that fat guy's 2-minute wallow like a walrus on the beach. So yeah, I'm divorced and life wasn't so bad. A year later, I met Michael, a guy who hates professional sports but also loves hiking as much as I do. And we get along great. We got married a year after we met. Zach met Katie, who is obsessed with baseball, and life took off for both of us. Katie shoots Counter-Strike better than he does, and he has learned to always be on her team, or she will kick his ass every time. Yes, they got married about the same time Michael and I did. Neither of us attended the other wedding, but I happily drove and picked up our daughter before and after. Zach did the same at my wedding. The only question is, what genie fulfilled Zach's desire to find a single woman obsessed with professional baseball who also has killer skills in Counter-Strike? I don't go to bachelorette parties because Michael throws a lot of parties for us and our friends. He can't dance, but once every couple months he lets me dance. I really enjoy sitting with my boyfriend in a nice bar, listening to live music and enjoying his company. In the beginning, I told Michael exactly what I wanted from him, and it shocked him. After all, that's what he always does. Needless to say, no walrus sex. And yes, I do my best to keep him properly exhausted. Sex is enjoyable again. I know it's even more shocking. A little effort to get the motor running, and voila. I'll make sure he gets his because he returns the favor. This summer, I'm taking our daughter to England to hike the southwest coast. 2 weeks later, my ex-husband is taking her to Florida for a week of beach vacations and theme parks. Last year, we celebrated Thanksgiving at my house. My turkey with stuffing made from my grandmother's recipe was great. Zach and Kathy were my guests, and our daughter had dinner with us and our spouses. Michael and I went to Zach's for Christmas, and we were their guests. I even got Zach and Kathy some Counter-Strike baseball caps. Zach bought Michael and I t-shirts that said The North Face. Am I annoyed that Zach lost weight and got decently pumped up for Katie, but not for me? Yes. But I'm not going to break the peace treaty we have because of it. I think we're doing a lot of good by showing our daughter examples of how to be responsible and reasonable adults. Besides, Katie is one heck of a cook, and I'm looking forward to Easter because she says her Easter ham is amazing. Considering how great her Christmas filet mignon wrapped in bacon was, I believe her. And a couple extra pounds is no big deal. My life? Beautiful.